Hello, Antonina. We're making this video to send to her grandmother in Russia. And so I feel like I need to start on time, and there'll be other people coming, which is totally okay. Most of you call her Antonina. I call her Tonya. Some of our neighbors call her Tonya. Her grandmother, her uncle, she's usually Tonya, unless she's in trouble. And we've got friends from work, friends from school, friends of mine, neighbors, pretty good mix of people. There's a guest book that you can put your name in if you want. I'll send that to her grandmother. She doesn't speak English, but she has friends who do. And of course, we miss her, but we're here to remember the nice things, the kind of memories we'll have all our life. It was 2006 when I first met her mother on a website. And Nicole here, who's making the video, was my secretary at the time, and she read the emails that I got from Russia. And one of the first things I asked was to have a message from her daughter, who was 12, and to have her tell me if she wanted to come to America. So this was about December of 2006. And she wrote the most amazing, wonderful little message, essay, you might say. I used to know it word for word, and it's been a long time. But it said approximately this: Dear Bob, she always called me Pa after that, but I was Bob at that time. Yes, I want to come to America. Many years ago, I asked my ma if we could move to America because I have allergy to wool, and we wear wool in the cold weather. She said I will be a obedient daughter and a good student. She said my ma is a good lady. Man's like her, woman's like her. She work hard. She never tell the lie. And that was the essence of the first message. And I thought, oh boy, what a beautiful little girl. I'm not this emotional all the time, but maybe I am today. Sorry. We met for the first time in China because they lived in this city called Komsomolsk-na-Amur, which means the city of Komsomolsk on the Amur River. And that city was built by Joseph Stalin as a prison city. They still, to this day, have 3 prisons. That's one of their big industries. And it also was built there because the Amur River gets wide and deep, and they can build ships. Now they build submarines and take them up north, straight north, and then end into the Pacific Ocean. So she told me no American had ever visited there and probably wasn't welcome. So we had our first visit in Beijing, China. Now Russia is a big place. It's got 11 time zones. When they flew to Moscow, which everyone thinks of as Russia, it was almost as far as flying from here in Orlando to Hawaii, just across Russia. And so they flew to Beijing, which was fairly close. It was straight south, about 1,000 miles. And the first time I met them, I was coming off my plane in the Beijing airport, and there were these 2 young, pretty skinny girls jumping up and down, saying, Bob, Bob, Bob. And I had two big suitcases. One of them was full of gifts and toys and surprises for them. And the other one was my stuff. They each had a backpack. They probably didn't have much more with them than this urn. And by the way, this is not Antonina. I don't have her ashes yet. This is something I borrowed for the ceremony, just representative. So we spent 3 days in Beijing. We went to the Great Wall of China, which there's a beautiful framed picture here with a lot of photos from that trip. And then we went to Shanghai for another 10 days. It was certainly the best trip of their lives. They'd never been anywhere. And it was the best trip of my life because I was so excited. We were lucky to get there in good weather, and we have a beautiful day today here in Orlando. There's a lot of pollution in those cities on the bad days, but we were there during fabulous, clear, sunny, bright days. And we went to the Great Wall, and we went on some rides, and we went to a wax museum, and Tonya, or Antonina, depending on who you are. I didn't understand at first what she was doing, but she would go up to a display at this wax museum, and she would pose in the pose of the famous person, whether it was Bill Clinton or Marilyn Monroe, or in this picture down here, over here, there's a picture of her standing next to one of the James Bond actors with her gun up in the air. And it was amazing when I looked at the pictures later, and she just absolutely mimicked every one so perfectly. And on that trip, I gave each of the girls, her mother Luda and Antonina, a ring. And we started the paperwork process of marrying a international person, which isn't easy. About 18 months later, and a couple of lawyers, they arrived here in Orlando in July of 2008. And that was they arrived on about the same day that Emma was born. And Antonina wanted a dog, so we looked I think in those days you looked in the paper. And we went to visit a possible pet. And the first one we saw was too nervous and wanted to pee on the floor. Now, little did I know that Emma would pee on our floor a million times. But we passed on the first dog and came home with Emma. Antonina loved her dog, and so did Ludmilla. In fact, Emma went to Russia with them one time, which isn't easy to take a dog to Russia because there's quarantine times and airline rules and all that stuff. But they wanted to take her, and so she doesn't realize that Antonina is gone, but she's as close to Antonina as anybody here. And she still sniffs the air every day and looks up the street to see if Tonya's car is coming and watches the back door. Emma is deaf now. She, of course, used to hear the car arriving and stuff like that, but and now it all has to be visual. And she'll still be watching. She doesn't know why we're here today. I only brought her as a prop, and I will bring her up and put her on camera. When we finish, if you're one of the important people to Antonina and you want to come and look at the camera and say hello, you'll be speaking to her grandmother and her uncle and her friends in Russia. I'd like you to do that, and also do it kind of expeditiously so that we can run the video continuously and not make them watch it in Russia over, a lot of dead time. But I'll tell you when we're close to the end. We bought a new van, went to Key West for a honeymoon, and it was always Luda, Antonina, and me. It wasn't a honeymoon with just husband and wife. And of course, everybody thought it was funny when I checked into this motel with 2 young girls. And some of them asked, and some of them just gave me squirrely looks. But we always had great times. Some of you have seen an email where I listed all the places Antonina has been in her short life. Of course, she was born in Russia. And foreign countries, she's been to South Korea, to China, to France. She touched down in Germany on a plane flight. I don't think that counts. She's been to Brazil, to the Bahamas, or maybe on a cruise ship to Jamaica. I can't even remember all the places. I think I counted 21 states in the District of Columbia. She'd probably say one of her best trips was Hawaii. Lots of people say that when they go to Hawaii. It's a nice place. And her greatest thrill in Hawaii was we found a place with big waves that she couldn't stand up in, and getting out in them and having them knock her down and get back up and fight the waves. Of course, at the time she was only 13 or 14 years old. Maybe now at age 27, she wouldn't play in the waves like that, but she'd still enjoy Hawaii. And we had happy times. First Christmas, they'd never had an American Christmas. I woke up early because I was excited about Christmas. And they were both asleep, or at least in bed, and I had to go back and forth and tell them that it's time to get up, it's Christmas time. They didn't know what was coming. We had a Christmas tree, of course, and we had presents under the tree, and that was more than they'd ever seen. I mean, we kind of do it big here in America on Christmas, if we can. And she and Luda, I made them come upstairs together. They saw some unwrapped things like 2 bicycles and some other, and they just couldn't even believe it. And I don't have the picture, but she was jumping up and down and hugging me, and she got up on my shoulders and sat there and took a picture in front of the tree. And then of course, a couple hours later, they were out riding their new bicycles. She had a good life. And she had good friends, some of which are here, at school, at work. Oh, at school, she was so smart. When she first got here, she didn't speak English. Now, her mother spoke a little bit of English, but Antonina spoke no English at all. Do I have to bring Emma up front? No? Okay. Emma's squirming back there. I used to get up every morning before Antonina and write some kind of an essay in English and use an online translator to put the paragraphs in English and then the paragraphs in Russian, English, Russian. And the translators weren't as good then as they are now. If you translate something today, it'll pretty much mean what you want it to mean. But 14 years ago, it wasn't as good, and so some of the things I wrote didn't make sense, and she had to figure them out. And the essays might have been about American history. They might have been about geography. They might have been about World War II, or it might have been about Russian history. It might have been about nature, elephants, whales, anything I thought maybe she'd be interested in. And she studied them every day, and that was her homeschooling. And in a few months, she spoke English very well. And I dare say her vocabulary is better than the vocabulary of a lot of native English-speaking people. We, forever, right up until her death, sort of played a game at home where I'd try and find a word, an English word that she didn't know. And usually when I tested her on a word, she knew it, but I could usually also come up with one she didn't know, and I'll give you all the test right now. This one she failed, but boy, she was glad to learn the word. Avuncular. You've seen it. You've heard it. You know what it means? There's a clue right in the middle of the word. It means like an uncle, like a friendly older guy. If a person acts in an avuncular way, they're acting like your uncle might. Hugs and kisses and do anything for you. And her favorite English word was pandemonium. She thought it sounded good. It doesn't come up in a sentence very much, but she decided that early on that pandemonium was a really cool sounding word. The last thing I wrote to her was a Valentine's Day card, just last month. Antonina always gave me really good gifts. I mean, she could choose a gift better than anyone. She could have been a professional gift buyer, I think. But recently she gave me a robe and slippers, and it was a nice warm robe. It still is. I wear it every day. And nice slippers that I could wear in the house and also wear outside if I had to take Emma out. And anytime she got something for me, it was what I wanted and what I needed, and I didn't have to tell her in advance. It was so nice. She was, of course, absolutely crushed the day I had to tell her her mother was dead. Her mother was in France. Antonina was in Orlando, but not living with me. And I called early in the morning and said, I've got to talk to you. I'm going to come over. And oh gosh, that was so hard. Antonina and Ludmilla were like mother and daughter, but they were like sister and sister. They both looked young and had similar interests. And her mother had been in France working on a job, and Antonina went over there to visit her for a month. And she went to France and Spain and Monaco, and everything was fine. And less than a month after she came back, her mother died. So that was a hard thing, and that carried through right till the day she died. I'm sure that was a factor in her feeling depressed and making the very, very bad decision to take a drug. I'm going to do a 15-second commercial. Maybe there's 40 people here. I've never taken a drug. Some of you have. I know the statistics. If there's 40 people here, some have. Some have made that decision because it would make you feel good, or it would solve your problem, or take away your sadness. Antonina Zakharova. She made a bad decision. Maybe she got a bad drug that wasn't made right, was mixed with something bad. There were some other people in Florida that got sick that same day. But try to take this lesson. If you're one of those, or if you give advice to someone else, it's a tough decision if you've got an addiction or a need, and that seems like there's an easy solution. But say no. Remember this day. Remember this beautiful girl. It had 27 good years. And she could have had 3 times that many. She loves her grandmother. She loves her uncle. She loves her friends in Russia. She loves her friends here in Orlando. She told one of her friends here in Orlando that if she happened to die, she wanted to at least live longer than Emma, so that Emma wouldn't have to miss her. So we know she didn't want to die. Now there's a couple people that have asked me that they wanted to say something. And I want you to come up here so that we can have a continuity of the video for Antonina's mother. If you are one of the ones that want to make a comment, Eddie, Lily, come up here and stand right where I am in front of the camera and make your comments. Lubov, this is Eddie.
Sorry, Bob. Sorry.
Thank you.
Excuse me 1 second. Hey everybody, my name's Eddie. I dated Antonina for 3 years. I can't believe we're standing here like this. This is a lot. I dated her for 3 years. She was a beautiful person inside and out. She was very kind to everyone and everything. Every friend that she had was like family, and I know all of you felt that. She had many close friends, like my fiance, Alice, Lily, Taylor. I love seeing you guys all together. Even pictures of you guys hanging out and what you guys created was like a true sisterhood what you guys had. And I wasn't part of her life anymore, but just watching you guys together made me happy because I saw she was happy too. And she needed you guys. You guys all looked out for each other. It was great. Antonina was extremely smart, extremely funny, and always wanted to take it to the next level. She could stay up all night partying with friends, me, anybody, and she could still get straight A's in her pre-med. I don't know anybody that could do that. I couldn't do it. She shared her culture, traditions, and we celebrated everything. Now it's all a memory. When her mother Ludmila passed, it changed it all. All she ever wanted was her mother's love. I hope they're together again. They both were one of a kind, and I'll always remember their smiles. Bob, you gave Antonina and her mother a great opportunity and life here in America. You treated Antonina like one of your own, and you always respected her. You treated them both well, and you're a great man. One of the last things that I said to Antonina when she was going through with her mom and she broke it off with me was, in a quote, I quoted this, "I hope that you still take insight from Bob. He loves and supports you, cares about your well-being, and has your best interest. You were her father and she loved you. She called you Pa for a reason." Pavel is Antonina's uncle that she looked up to. She always talked, excuse me. She always talked about how much she loved you. She looked up to you, your times together when you shared music, and you got her into all the music she loved into the end. She cherished, and she talked about you often. You were like a celebrity to her. Lubov, which is Antonina's grandmother. Antonina loved you very much. You were always there to help raise her and become the beautiful person that she was. When I would hear her talking Russian to you, she was happiest. She looked up to you and missed you every day. You were talked about very often in the highest regard, and my deepest sympathies goes to you. Izamerki s Lubovki. To Lubov and Pavel, I always wanted to meet you in person. I felt your Russian tradition and love through Tonya. She loved you both the most. She was loved very much by everyone here in America, and deepest sympathies to you. Usvashye u vashi utratye. I'm sorry for your loss. And до свидания, Antonina Romanovna Zakharova. Thank you. Спасибо. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi everyone. I met Antonina 2017 the first time, and she was my daughter's best friend, and I loved her like an own daughter. She came to me every Saturday to get her nails or her lashes done to feel more beautiful, but I couldn't make her more beautiful. She was one of the most beautiful girls I ever met, and I always felt like her mom in a way because she always told me all her bad things that was happening to her, and I always feel bad because I feel like I didn't live up to it. I couldn't help her enough. I wanted to. And she had a lot of dark thoughts, and she had a lot of problems going on that maybe she was hiding from some of you. And depression is not an easy thing. And I found her very strong to even be able to get up every morning and go to work and perform the way she did. I don't think a lot of us could do that. And she didn't know that she was so strong, but she actually was a very, very strong person. And her life could have been so beautiful. And I told her always that whatever she would want to do, even just go back to school and do a nursing degree or something, she would have been great at it. She was very smart and she was very talented. And she had a good heart and she was great with people. Everyone would have loved her no matter where she would have gone to work. And I'm so sad that that life ended, that her sadness was stronger than her will to live and her will to be happy and her will to find the right person next to her that would have given her a good home and a good life. And in my heart, I know that no matter what she would have been doing or working, she would have been great at it. She was a beautiful, amazing person. Some people come into a life and they are with us for a couple weeks, months, years. She's someone who definitely touched my heart, my soul forever. She will be always in my memories. And I will miss her very much. I know when she got stuck in Russia, because she had appointments with me, and she says, "Hey, I'm so sorry I can't come. I got stuck in Russia. My passport is expired." But it was the best thing that could happen to her. I think if there is faith, that was one of those moments to be able to be with her grandma, who she loved very much, and with her family and friends. And when she came back, she was more happier than ever. And I even told her, "Antonina, maybe you should move back. Maybe that's somewhere that you would feel more happier than here." But it definitely was a great time for her to be with her family for those moments, and she was happy on every picture she sent me. And she will be missed. She was loved, and she will be missed forever.
Thank you. Lubov, that was Edie Sawyer and Eddie Mata. And there's many other friends here. We all love her. I'm going to finish with a story about when Lubov came to America. She stayed for 6 months. And one of the highlights of our 6 months together, we flew to Las Vegas, spent several days in Las Vegas, went to a show every night, sometimes 2 shows. And then we rented a van just like the one that I had at home and drove from Las Vegas to first Lake Tahoe, a beautiful city about a 1 day's drive north of Vegas. And then we drove north to go to the Redwoods. And along the way we had a kind of a picnic at a little lakeside park before we left Lake Tahoe with chipmunks running around the grass next to us, going into holes, trying to give them food. And on our drive north towards the Redwoods, we stopped along the side of the road, a busy road like I-5 in California, and picked blackberries. It was perfect late June time for blackberries, fresh, sweet, big trucks and cars rushing by, almost killing us every minute. But that was one of the memorable times. And if you go up California in the center, you're not in the Redwoods, they're going to be over next to the coast. So then we cut across on a little traveled road, and it's winding, and we want to see the big trees, and we know they're coming soon, and finally there they are. And it was almost closing time for the first Redwood Park that we arrived at, and so we stopped quickly, and we were the last customers for the ranger that was there, and he let us go in and walk around and look at the giant trees. If you haven't been to redwood trees, they're bigger around than I can illustrate. Some of them are 10 feet across, the bigger ones are even bigger than that. And they're very fire resistant. You can see where they had fires maybe 1,000 years ago on an old tree, and it burned a little hole in it, and the tree's gone up to 200 feet or 300 feet. And we worked our way down the California coast. We went to San Francisco, which is a beautiful city, one of the most beautiful cities in the world. It turns out that my grandson was a little boy then, and he was visiting a relative in San Francisco, so we went and picked him up and took him to dinner. Now about the grandson. When he first met Tonya, Antonina, and her mother, Ludmila was a very hard name, and he was 4 years old. And he could remember Tonya, and she was more his age, teenager. And he called her Tonya, and he called Luda the other one. And he would say, "Where's the other one?" And we, of course, knew who she meant. And we went on down the California, the Pacific coast. It's a beautiful 200 or 300 mile, called the Big Sur coast. Went to Hearst Castle. Lubov is remembering all of this as she sees this video. Lubov Castle was built by a newspaper magnate 50, 60, 70 years ago, 80 years ago. It's up on a hill. It's one of the biggest private residences in the world. It's got everything lavish, and in its peak, it had a zoo with hundreds of wild animals, including giraffes and so forth, running around in their pastures. And it overlooks the Pacific Ocean, and whales swim by and so forth. It's a kind of a neat place. That was one of their highlights. And we visited Santa Barbara, where my daughter lived. Down to Los Angeles. Oh, they loved Hollywood. Hollywood isn't a beautiful place. It's kind of a dump if you've seen beautiful places. But it's exciting. It's got mystique. And they looked at the stars, and we went on a tour, and we went walking up where the Hollywood sign is. You can walk for miles on the dirt trails up there, and we couldn't find the sign. I mean, one of the biggest signs in the world, and we couldn't. We walked until we were just tired of walking. We even cut cross country, went through some snake trails and stuff like that. And luckily, we were able to find our car when we came back. And then we went down to Balboa, a beautiful little seaside town, and San Diego, and we went to the San Diego Zoo. We were there on the hottest day of California's history. It was in late June or early July of whatever year it was, and it was over 100 degrees in Southern California. Now, it doesn't get that hot there, but oh boy, it was hot. And then we drove back to Las Vegas, which of course is even hotter. It was 115 degrees when we got back to Las Vegas. But oh gosh, we had a great time. And we went all over Florida. We picked up Lubov originally in New York's airport and drove south and went to Washington, D.C. and lots of places in between. We went on a separate trip through the South, and one of the highlights was Antonina was to go to a magic show in some town in Arkansas. And oh boy, she loved that. She liked occult stuff and black clothes and black makeup and black lipstick and black nail polish. But it was exciting. And we went back to Key West. We went on cruises. It was just great. Now, poor Lubov lived in the bedroom just below the master bedroom in our house, and I didn't know it. But when you walk upstairs in my house, now don't tell this if you meet a prospective buyer for my house. When you walk upstairs, the person downstairs can hear every footstep. And finally, after several months of living with us, she said, I can tell it if Luda gets up at night, there's these little steps. And if Bob gets up, it's clump, 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 clump. But the highlight of her visit was the downstairs bedroom has a bathroom and then a back door that goes out to the swimming pool. And she went swimming almost every night. I didn't even know it. She went swimming in the dark at night. And one night, she opened the back door, and there was a large black bear standing there. And Luda went, "Ah!" And the bear went, "Ah!" And the bear turned around and ran and jumped in the pool, swam across, which isn't a big deal for a bear. And we could see his paw prints go out the other side. So Luda won Lubov won the shouting match that day. Just recently, and I mean within the last couple of weeks, Antonina went into our, was coming home from work, and she opened the garage, or the garage was already open. There was a black bear in there anyway, raiding the refrigerator. A big one, she says. It was gigantic. She showed me out the window. It was stopped in our backyard for a while. We know from several black bear visits in our garage that, first of all, they have a good nose. They can smell what's there before they choose it. And they always chose chocolate. And they always chose butter. And they always chose like vegetable oil. And the refrigerator could be full of other stuff, but when we saw the scraps of what they left behind, it was those high calorie things, and especially the chocolate. So on that last visit, the bear got a quarter pound of butter, a jar of olive oil, and some little cups of chocolate pudding. And when Tonya came up, he ran off into the backyard, and then she and I went upstairs and looked out and watched it until it decided to go away. I have a lifetime of good memories. Of course, I don't have all that much lifetime left, but I have memories that'll last forever for me. And some of them will last forever for you. And who knows, you might have a little baby and relate one of our stories, and it might even last longer than that. So it was a good time when we had her, and it's still going to be a good time in our hearts and in our memories. Thank you for coming. Does anyone want to come up here and look into this camera and say hello to Russia? If not, we'll shut it down. Yes, there's one speaker coming up. Both this lady introduced me, but she'll have to introduce herself because I don't remember.
Hi, everybody. Hello. My name is Tiffany. I have a little thing I'd like to read. Okay. The heart is that spiritual part of us where our emotions dwell. The heart is the very core of our being. It's what defines who we are. We will meet people in this life that their lasting impression is that, the strength of their heart, and the love that poured from it. This is the belief I have that has helped me bring comfort to myself while grieving the loss of Antonina, our beautiful Antonina. I am humbled by the challenge of describing the fullness of her heart. She was such a gentle soul who set a lasting impression on everyone she met. Her kindness and positivity will leave an unwavering legacy. Her love, her generosity were infused in everything that she did. She was always willing to help others and was such a hard worker with a forgiving heart. Lake Mary Veterinarian Clinic was truly blessed to have her as an employee. Despite her own personal challenges in life, she always looked outside of herself. And that is what I admired the most about her. The emotions I have experienced during this time are those I wouldn't wish on my worst enemy. To all her friends, her family, and her loved ones, my heart is with you all. And I pray for moments of peace and comfort as we all remember our beautiful Antonina. Thank you so much.
The next speaker, Lubov, is Antonina's dance teacher at Lake Mary High School.
Hello, everybody. I just want to take the opportunity to express the love that I know all of you guys feel. It was absolutely beautiful. Just like Antonina, anybody that I've spoken to, I only had her for a short time, but she made such a lasting impression on everybody. And I know, just like all of you guys can say, there's not a single bad thing that we can say about Antonina. She would come into my dance room every day with the sweetest smile on my face and leave every single day, no matter what challenges she had. And I just pray that, just like you said, Mom, like her legacy will live forever. To remember to be kind to people, to reach out to people, because even with a smile on their face, we don't know how bad they are hurting inside. And I just want to say thank you for giving us such a beautiful person. And I pray, just like you spoke earlier, it breaks my heart, because anybody that's ever had me as a student knows, like I teach all about no sad, no drugs. And I just know how bad she had to be hurting to do that. And I pray, as we have younger people here, even older people, as we face problems, I pray that she will live in your heart to make the best choices for her and to continue to just love each other. Thank you guys so much. Thank you for allowing her to come here too. Thank you.
Thank you to Miss Kay and to everybody that came, the friends, the neighbors, my friends who didn't know Antonina as well, but did know her. And we have pictures around in the back and on the side and in the front. If you want to take a look before you go, there's a guest book where you can say hello if you want. I'll send that to Lubov when I can. I don't know what we can send to Russia these days. Thank you for coming. Have a good lifetime.
Can I tell a story?
Wait a minute, we got one more.
Okay,
And I want to get Emma on camera too.
okay. Tonya was my neighbor, and because I had chihuahuas, I got to have the dog a lot. And after that, whenever they would walk, the dog would drag them to Tonya to my front door, and the dog would come in, walk in there, eat the dog food from my dogs, which would irritate my dogs, and then she would walk out, and that was it. One of the funniest
Come
things.
this way just a little bit.
One of the funniest things Tonya ever told me, well, number one was the love of her grandmother who had helped raise her so much. But she said that when she would get really, really mad at her grandmother, she would say, when I get my house in America, you're gonna live in the basement. And that was the funniest thing she ever told me. So I treasure my time with Tonya. I am sorry she's gone. Thank you, bye-bye.
Thank you. That was a wonderful, lighthearted way to finish, and we love you and goodbye.